Politics HQ today, I'll be discussing and measuring the importance of Nigeria's 2023 elections to Africa and its future. My guest tonight, David Matsanga, African Affairs Analyst and a man who's also observed and monitored past elections in Nigeria, is joining me live. Good to see you, Dr. Matsanga. Thanks for your time as always.
Thank you very much, my brother Sulaiman. Happy New Year to you across, and thank you very much, our viewers across the continent of Africa and in Europe and in the entire world. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Matsanga, Happy New Year. I haven't actually said that, and we haven't actually had this time on television to do that. Well, let's start by, because we've had this conversation, you know, and this is the year Nigerians have been waiting for, the 2023 elections. And again, we've seen what happened in Kenya. And for the Kenya election, just like the Kenya election, the Nigerian president will not be on the ballot. So we have newbies, tested politicians. But again, these are not people not known by Africans in diaspora and on the continent. Let us in on what you think about the campaign so far from your, prison that you have been watching so far.
Thank you very much, Suleiman. I am not a Nigerian, but I know Nigeria inside, in and out. I have been to Onitsha, I have been to Enugu, I have been to Kano, I have been to Ibadan, I have been to all places, Port Harcourt. Wherever you take me, I will always fit. But I understand the geography, the dynamics, the political dynamics of this country called Nigeria. And I have been standing in to say one of the good things that we have as a pride is to have Nigeria with a population of 220 million people, the biggest country in Africa with a huge population, and we have a lot of expectations. On the question of elections, everybody in the world is watching. Every center of political science is watching into Nigeria, the candidates. The campaigns have been going on. The campaigns have been going on despite the fact that some of them have been, tainted with a lot of bribery, a lot of money being swung around. There are factors, serious factors that could affect an election, any election in Africa, not only Nigerian elections. But one of the most important factors that I pick out of all this, which I've picked in most of the African countries, is just to vote on ethnicity and regional blockings, and then the Electoral Commission. If the Electoral Commission does it wrongly, we have a crisis. And that is what has happened in most of the places in Africa. The Electoral Commission...
Let me jump in here. Dr. David Matsanga, let me jump in here because you're not far from it. We've seen that quite a lot of places on the continent, how people have brought in ethnic politics and regional politics. And as it is now in Nigeria, as you highlighted, some of the major candidates have, come from different geopolitical zones as highlighted. But tell us the importance or otherwise of actually throwing in the ethnic agenda when people go into a national election as we're witnessing in Nigeria at the moment?
Because politics in Africa has not evolved. It hasn't evolved over years. We are only 66 years old from the first country that picked independence in 1957. If my mathematics can be correct, about 65 years of independence. So if you give 65 years of independence, out of the 65 military coups usurped most of the powers, democracy started very recently in some of these African countries. Therefore, you can't expect a thorough democratic election. There is no democratic election. There will be no democratic, very fair election in Africa, except maybe South Africa tries to do it. In all places in Africa, there is always a stammer there is always somebody saying, no, I was rigged out. This is not correct. Because of the, not because of the of people wanting to do it. To some extent, yes, but to a bigger extent, our democracy, our type of elections, our type of way forward has not evolved over years. So
and who do you blame for this? If you say our democracy hasn't evolved over the years, should we? And you also mentioned military coups that we have witnessed. Specifically, we've seen plenty of that around West Africa. Can we put the blame on the military?
But the external forces that influenced, that brought in military coups. Your first military coup by General Aronzi was brought in by external forces. The military coup by General Achapong across in Ghana was brought in. The military coup in Uganda, which brought us back in 1970. We had picked democracy so well. Until 1970, we are reversed into Idi Amin. The military coup in Sudan, where General Nimeri kept on coming back and taking power. So many military places, coups that took place around Africa after independence, actually were being funded, equipped, logistically supplied by the Western Hemisphere. If they didn't like you, if you had assumed or perceived to be a Russian friend or a Chinese friend, a communist friend, you're overthrown. Mossad, MI6, CIA will come and throw you out. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, military coup, you see Patrice Lumumba murdered. It took Mobutu to come up to seize power. So democracy could not hold after independence in Africa. It only started holding when the military returned to the barracks. And we have not yet healed from the past. We still have military coups, younger men coming out of their barracks in West Africa, in Burkina Faso, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, not Cote d'Ivoire, Conakry, Guinea Conakry, Conde.
Dr. Matsanga, what readily comes to mind here now? Let's go back to how we started. You started by looking at independence and the founding fathers of the continent. Now, I'm not speaking about Nigeria, the founding fathers of the continent. Some of these people you met before their demise. And let's talk about the philosophy and the idea. If we're saying our democracy is still far from being what it should be, is it as a result of another reason, perhaps maybe the ideologies or philosophies of the founding fathers of the continent?
Yes, some of the philosophies were very good. Look at the philosophy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. Tanzania is the only country on the African continent that has got a social contract, my brother. People have a social contract. They know what Tanzania means. They know what tribalism can do to destroy a nation. Show me another country in Africa which has a social contract where people understand that we are Tanzanians. We are not tribal. We are not Fulani. We are not Hausa. We are not Igbo. We are not Yoruba. In most of these countries in Africa, you find someone asking him, where do you come from? He doesn't say Nigeria. He says, I come from, I'm Fulani. So look at that type of politics. It is still amongst the people. Ethnicity, regionalism, money, third forces coming up. The younger generation are now teaming up to say, can we bring salvation to our countries? Indeed, the philosophies of the past leaders, some of them have worked so well in countries where there is stability. In Kenya, for example, the founding fathers were very, 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 very important in making a huge space. It went back 24 years of Moi. That space in Kenya, despite all the difficulties, Kenya is the only country in East Africa that does not have a political prisoner, a prisoner of conscience in jail. The rest of East African states have political prisoners except Kenya and Tanzania. Now you tell me, what type of democracy are we creating on this continent? You see, if you see, you look at the space in Kenya is huge, it's grown. They can quarrel, they can fight, they can insult each other, but there is freedom to publish. There is freedom to enjoy, to say hello. You are not ruling us properly. In some states in East Africa, believe me or not, Sulaiman, if you even stop the president and ask a question, you will be taken by the bodyguards and you might not see your life again. So this is some of the things that pushed us back. The ideology was not followed. In Kenya, the people followed the ideology of the founding fathers. Despite the hiccups, Kenya remained on a stable path towards a better, a bigger space of democracy, of yearning for democratic reforms that can bring and enhance the politics and make politics better. That is the state we want. Tanzania, the same. That is the state we want. South Africa, the same. That is the state we want. South Africa has got a problem.
Now we'll come back to Nigeria. Yes. This election in the country, what kind of president do you think Nigeria should be looking to getting that should also help the agenda of having a better and a prosperous continent? At the moment, the heads are all rounding off conversations in Senegal for the Dakar 2 summit, where they have said to the world that Africa can feed itself. So what kind of president and, perhaps philosophy towards other broader African countries are we suppose or looking to elect?
Nigeria needs a unifying president. A president that will unify the state of Nigeria. It is fragmented. I have to be very honest here. There are too many problems currently in Nigeria. Boko Haram, corruption, kidnaps that take place in some of the places daytime, which we hear, we read, we see the newspapers, especially the menace of Boko Haram, terrorists who have come up, picked guns to destroy, to kill, dismember, maim, and plunder, destroy the property of the people of Nigeria, of the people of Nigeria who are supposed to be peaceful. That is a big menace for this state called Nigeria. It will affect the elections. This insecurity will affect how many people turn up to vote. How many people will turn up to vote down on the polling station on the polling day on 25th of February. It is sad that this insecurity, the President Muhammad Buhari promised us that he will fight this insecurity. In the first term, 100 days I will finish the Boko Haram. We have a problem now. And that problem needs a unifying president, a unifying presidential candidate whom you are going to elect. I'm not going to take sides and say, go under this one, go on this one. I want to remain a scholar of international repute, that I don't take sides on this. I will only give you the analysis, the comparison, the comparative analysis of what should happen. You need a person who can unify Nigeria.
Speaking of which, let me quickly throw in here a man you're very close to is the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. We also recall that at a point in time, Kenya had a security challenge, Al-Shabaab and its affiliates. But the gentleman, the former president, was able to handle and arrest the situation. Perhaps let's start talking about some of the key things and note sharing that some of the African leaders should be having to ensuring that we have a peaceful continent.
Yeah, we should share intelligence on how to remove terrorism. For example, Kenya has got the best data on fighting terrorism. Uganda, for example, despite the difficulties of political deficit that we have, Museveni has got the best tactics that can bring about security in any war zone. Uganda had a lot of wars, a lot of insecurity. You notice that Al-Shabaab doesn't go to Uganda to play anymore. We have tactics. We should share intelligence. Kenya, for example, has experience on how it has been fighting insurgents and terrorism in Somalia and on their soil. So Africa should share intelligence information. That is one thing that I advocate. That is what the former president of Kenya brought in Kenya, and had a good generals, good intelligence officers who can gather, not intelligence officers who can work and they are not gathering. He brought in good managers of intelligence systems that could now penetrate and harness and use the people-driven intelligence networking to make sure that we reach to the core of Al-Shabaab. Yes, we are not saying it has been removed completely. Yes, we are not saying that it is over yet until it is over. But at least the Kenyan situation, the intelligence system, the management of their system against Al-Shabaab is intact. And that is a credit for that country. Why doesn't Nigeria share the intelligence network that the Kenyans have used, the Ugandans have used against Boko Haram? It is doing a havoc to your country and to the rest of Africa and the Sahara region.
Okay, still on the kind of leader that the continent expects Nigerians to elect on election day. It takes us to the economy of Nigeria and other African countries. And many still wonder why the talk of, since the death of Muammar Gaddafi, the whole talk of having a united Africa, having one unit of currency that is acceptable across the continent, and perhaps ease of travel within the continent, and even telecommunication system. So how best can the candidates in this election address such continental issues that will make Nigerians know that if truly this man emerges, this will be a thing of the past?
Thank you very much for that good question. Pan-Africanism and an African unity are two things that Africa lacks. We have lost the great leaders that can unite Africa. We have leaders who divide Africa every day. We have people who have come, as the Things Fall Apart book of Okonkwo, that someone has brought a knife and put a knife on the things that held us together. And our Omofia clan, where you are seated right now, has fallen apart. Now, therefore, Africa has fallen into pieces. Each African country wants to have its own agenda. The death of Muammar Gaddafi, under the pretext that he had weapons of mass destruction, I still ask the French, Mr. Sarkozy, to show me the nuclear weapons that he lied to the United Nations Security Council that Muammar Gaddafi had the nuclear weapons. Where did they put these nuclear weapons? Did they dismantle them? Did they blow them out? Where did they put them? They haven't shown us those nuclear weapons. They just went to destroy a country and left us in a very bad situation where Libya today is bleeding. Libya was a unifying factor for the African continent because Muammar Gaddafi had pushed in money in projects. There is nowhere in Africa where you can not find Muammar Gaddafi's symbol, at least an apartment, a hotel, a stadium, a mosque, a church leaders, editors, kings, everywhere in Africa you go. So such a leader was a unifying factor for Africa. Unfortunately, the French, not Sarkozy, teamed up with other people and they killed him. They have now busy dividing and stealing the oil of the Libyan people. For me, I speak my mind. How much oil is being stolen, not recorded? They have divided Libya into territories of Benghazi and Tripoli. The French have taken Benghazi, and the Ottoman Empire of the Turkey has taken Tripoli. We have recognized 2 people to kill, to maim, to steal oil from Libya, and Libya has become a begging bowl of Africa. So Nigeria needs to come up with a president who will stand up and say, hello, we need African unity on a serious, positioning. Look at the economy. You have a population that can consume the products of Kenya, Uganda. We produce quite a lot. We also need products from Nigeria. We need a free trade. We need no boundaries. We need a borderless Africa. An Africa that can deliver Africans to Africa itself. Not an Africa that deliver Africans to Mediterranean Sea, to die in the Mediterranean Sea, crossing over to the metros of Europe. An Africa that will cater for the people of the continent, give them the food, the supply. An African that can manufacture its own batteries, not export lithium across to other countries for jobs, for people in the metros. We need an Africa that can think together, not an Africa that only begs. We have become a begging bowl. When Joe Biden says, come quickly, he just does that, come, he run. When Macron says, come, they run. When India says, come, you run. We don't need that type of Africa.
And Dr. Matsanga, how possible is it for the African leader to do away with external interference in the governance of his country or the continent?
By uniting through AU. We have lost the AU. We have lost the AU, and let me tell you, the leaders of Africa, heads of state, especially those who are my friends, if you don't hear me, you will regret. The people of Africa, the African Union is gone. It has been sold. It has been mortgaged. It has been captured by France. France manufactures everything, orders us what to do. France tells us not to choose so and so. Since Dr. Muhammad Faki came to power, the African Union is dead. You see him in conferences competing for space with our president. He's our Secretary General. He's our clerk. He's a clerical officer of AU. He is not a head of state of Africa. He should not compete with our leaders, whom we stand in day and night and elect them. He should give them respect and become a secretary to take note of African Union. He has lost us. He has mortgaged us. He can fly to Ukraine to see the soldiers on the front line, but he cannot go to Tigray. He has never been to Tigray. Between Ethiopia, he never went to the front line in Tigray. Has he ever been to the front line in Mogadishu? Has he ever been to the front line in DRC, Congo, in Central African Republic? We need a Secretary General, a chairperson of African Union, who is very effective, who has no double standards. Africa will unite, and Nigeria should lead the way. The new president of Nigeria should lead the way in making sure that the AU organizes itself, reinvents itself, brings out a leader, an African Union that is respected.
Now let's talk about the people. We covered the Kenya election. You were with us, and you also neck deep in the Kenya election. That was the biggest election for 2022. So speak to the people, the electorates. What can the electorates look out for in ensuring that the right person with the right credential is elected?
First of all, electorate should not look for money. Look for quality. Look for leaders who are not going to earn and bank money abroad. 3/4 of Africa's money is banked in Dubai. 3/4 of African money is banked in Switzerland, in the banks in America. I'm telling you, if you look at Nigeria itself, the number of people who have banked money outside, you don't need to go and look for a loan from any of these European countries. You can ask them themselves to loan you the money. So we have this problem of corruption. Don't vote corrupt leaders. Vote people who have a record, a track record of making sure Nigeria has power. One of the problems that Nigeria has is it buys more generators than having natural power delivered to the homes. Most of the homes, if you fly over Nigeria, the places are dark at night. People use generators, which again adds to a very bad environment. Why Nigeria has 241 waterfalls, equivalent to Victoria Falls. Why can't we build hydroelectric power and harness that power to supply power to every Nigerian so that industries can grow? You have a population that can consume the goods. You are very good people, decent people. Why have your leadership failed you? Why have you fragmented yourselves into particles of disunity that has caused a man with a knife coming in the middle to stand to disintegrate you? You have a very good economy that can be involved in with other economies developed to make a better Africa. But what do? Everybody is fighting for the stomach, and the leaders are fighting for themselves, not for the people who elected them.
So let's close on this, and it's still a matter of conversation in Kenya. We're talking about the Electoral Commission. What should the Electoral Commission do to ensure that the kind of brouhaha that the IBC in Kenya has gone through doesn't happen with INEC here in Nigeria?
I will stick to the Nigerian Electoral Commission, and I'm avoiding to touch Kenya today because I don't want. I'm not asking you to go to Kenya. I'm saying the Kenyans are still, some of Kenyans are still complaining about the conduct of that election. And I'm asking, what should INEC, Nigeria's electoral umpire, do to ensure that that kind of dissatisfaction doesn't come from any section at the day? You are right. Independent Nigerian Electoral Commission should learn lessons. I was there in the last elections. The first election was cancelled at 5:27 a.m. I had booked my hotel in Lagos. My credit card had paid, money was taken out already. The person of the Electoral Commission came out and told us there is no voting today, the election has been cancelled. Some of us were on the way going to cover these elections. So we are left to go back to our hotels and look for our luggage and pack and get out. So the Independent Nigerian Electoral Commission must watch. People vote very well in some places, but the counting becomes a menace. What triggers chaos in most African elections is the electoral body. Electoral bodies trigger chaos. Electoral bodies are not independent. Nigeria has INEC, Independent Nigerian Electoral Commission, but it might not be independent. If you look at I was watching the chairman because I am a member of Chatham House in London, a rightful member of Chatham House in London. He came to address, and later on I asked my president of Chatham House, who is my great friend, that gentleman there, asked him what exactly was he trying to tell us. I don't know. One of the things that worries me as an African, why do Africans run to London to legitimize themselves? It means you are not sure of what you are going to do. Are you trying to legitimize yourself? You are seeking legitimacy from London, from Chatham House. We are not interested. The Chatham House members can see these things on the ground. But when you see the chairman has to be formed, the chairman has to direct an election, and most of these elections now have become a trigger for war in the whole of Africa. This year, Africa has got 9 elections, Sulaiman. 9 of them. One of them is the hottest, is yours. The second hottest is Zimbabwe, where we expect fireworks between Emerson Mnangagwa, my great friend for almost 25 years, and the younger man called Chamisa. They will have fireworks. And I've been telling Emerson to see ways of engaging so that they go to the elections when they are healed, when they have healed. If you heal before you go to the ballot, there will be somebody to concede. But if you go to the ballot, the Electoral Commission of Nigeria should also do a lot of electoral education. What kills people and what worries me, you have 93 million people, voters. I tell you, I want you to call me back on 27th of February. About 26 million people will vote.
Well, Dr. Matsanga, it's a fine place for us to leave it, and I do hope we'll have this conversation again before the election. And on election day, it is expected you'll be with me in the studios to look at the elections. I'd like to thank you for your time, Dr. David Matsanga, for speaking with me tonight.
Thank you very much, all viewers of News Central across the continent of Africa. Always tune in to this all program, and you will be there. There are facts here. This is the real Africa that I like, I enjoy. This is the station for Africa. God bless you.